These are sperm whales, the largest predators on the entire planet. They float like giant stone boulders, as if they were prepared for a ritual in the middle of the open ocean. But right now, they're just sleeping. Now, to be clear, these aren't the biggest whales in the ocean. That title belongs to the blue whale. But there is a massive difference between being the largest and being the most feared. Even killer whales, very ironic to their name, will not try to hunt an adult sperm whale. They're simply too outclassed, not just by size, but by intelligence, by strategy, by abilities no other predator on the earth possesses. They're able to survive in every ocean in the world, and also in depths where no animal that needs to surface is ever supposed to be in. Every legendary tale of men at sea battling giant whales all derived from this very one creature, the sperm whale. When the whale begins its hunt by casting echolocation throughout the ocean, every other creature nearby will go completely radio silent. No one wants to be found. What makes these whales so terrifying that even other apex predators in the ocean will stay away? How does a mammal that still has to breathe air manage to survive diving to the deepest parts of the ocean? And why does it seem like no matter how deep or how dark you hide, a sperm whale will always be able to find and kill you? To understand how these animals seem to be freakishly dominating the ocean, you first have to understand the scale of what we're dealing with. A male sperm whale can reach 60 feet in length and weigh over 50 tons. So basically imagine a parking lot full of 30 cars, and then you put them all on this edge of the scale. The sperm whale still weighs more than that. But their most significant stat isn't their body weight, it's their brain weight. They possess the single largest brain of any animal to ever exist in the history of the world. Which means, yes, this is like the 4th world record that I've mentioned sperm whales breaking. It's about 5 times larger than a human brain. And while we still don't fully understand what they're doing with all their extra processing power, it's clear they aren't just drifting aimlessly. There is a common misconception that whales are just slow, gentle giants that wander the ocean like peaceful floating clouds. And well, this is actually true, for things like blue whales or humpback whales. But sperm whales aren't passive, they're active, tactical predators. They can reach speeds of nearly 20 miles an hour when they need to, which, for an animal that weighs as much as 10 elephants combined, is a terrifying amount of momentum. And while they are famous for their battles with giant squids, they aren't just squid eaters. They are opportunistic. They have been known to take down sharks and large deep-sea fish, essentially eating whatever is large enough to be worth the effort. They are also one of the most successful travelers on the planet. They don't have a home in the traditional sense, because they occupy every ocean on Earth where the water is deep enough to hide their bodies. From the frozen Antarctic to the tropical currents of the equator, the sperm whale is the one constant apex predator that you'll see everywhere. This makes them built for any environment, including the bottom of the ocean. Most marine mammals are restricted to the top few hundred feet of the ocean where the light reaches. The sperm whale, however, routinely dives over 3,000 feet and has been recorded going as deep as 10,000 feet. At that depth, the water pressure is over 3,000 pounds per square inch, which essentially for anything else means you're dead. Even blue whales, which are almost 3 times as heavy as sperm whales, have maximum recorded dives only reaching 1,600 feet. Any further and they'd suffer the same fate as any other creature, instant death. This makes them one of the only animals in the entire world that can survive both at the surface and the absolute depths. You see, in nature, there is almost always a trade-off. You can either be a creature of the sun or a creature of the void. You don't get to be in both. If you live at the surface, you need lungs, which are basically big, fragile balloons of air. But if you go to the deep, those balloons collapse. Creatures that live in the deep sea are pressurized from the inside out to match the weight of the ocean around them. To them, the normal pressure we live in is actually a vacuum. If a deep sea fish tries to come to the surface, they literally expand from the inside out. Without the massive weight of the ocean holding their bodies together, their tissues begin to swell, their organs can fail, and in extreme cases, they basically just fall apart. It's why the blobfish looks like a miserable pile of melting goo when it's on land. It's not supposed to be there. So how does the sperm whale do it? And why bother going to places where no other whale would ever want to go? Well, to survive down there, the sperm whale essentially has to cheat at physics. See, while every other air breather is limited by their fragile lungs, the sperm whale's ribcage is actually flexible. It's designed to collapse instead of fighting the pressure. They just let their lungs fold up flat to keep them from rupturing. It sounds like a horrific injury, but for them, it's just Tuesday. But they still need to breathe, right? Well, not exactly. Unlike us, they don't carry much of their oxygen in their lungs. Down there, that's just a liability. Instead, they store it directly in their blood and muscles. They have massive amounts of a protein called myoglobin, which holds onto oxygen with a death grip. This allows them to effectively shut down their respiratory system and go into a low power mode for over 90 minutes. But even if you survive the pressure and the lack of air, you've now entered the pitch black void, with no idea what is surrounding you and what might want to eat you. Fortunately for sperm whales, they're so big that, well, nothing really wants to eat them, or nothing can eat them. So they can't be eaten, they don't need much air, and they can survive the pressure. Cool, but why go down there still? Well, the deep ocean holds a massive, untapped caloric jackpot, cephalopods. Down in the abyss, there is a literal group of food that no other predator can touch, specifically the giant and colossal squids. For any other animal, a 40-foot squid with rotating hooks on its tentacles is a nightmare. There is no deep-sea predator that can compete with them. But sperm whales aren't from the deep sea. By evolving the ability to dive 3 times deeper than a blue whale, the sperm whale essentially secured a monopoly on the biggest food source in the ocean. It's a genius move, if you can survive the trip. But even if you're big enough to ignore the predators and tough enough to ignore the pressure, you're still basically flying a 50-ton plane in the middle of nowhere. In the pitch black of the abyss, eyes aren't doing anything for that whale. So, the sperm whale stopped relying on them. Instead, it decided to turn its entire face into the most powerful sonar system on the planet. This is the spermacety organ. It's a massive structure filled with thousands of gallons of specialized oil, taking up nearly a third of the whale's entire body. Its job is simple: to create, focus, and aim sound. When a sperm whale is hunting, it produces a series of clicks, but calling them clicks is like calling a jet engine a whistle. These sounds can reach 230 decibels. For context, a jet engine taking off is about 150 decibels. 180 decibels is enough to burst human eardrums. 230 decibels is loud enough to literally vibrate a human body to death. It is the loudest sound produced by any living creature in the history of the universe, even louder than a baby on the plane ride back home. When the whale sends these sound pulses out, they don't just hit things. They travel through the water like an acoustic searchlight. The sound waves bounce off the squid's body and return to the whale, giving it a 3D, high-definition map of exactly where the prey is, how fast it's moving, and even how big it is. A squid can be perfectly camouflaged and motionless in the dark, invisible to any eye, but to the sperm whale's sonar, it might as well be standing under a neon sign. There is nowhere to hide. If a sperm whale enters your part of the ocean, it already knows exactly where you are. But this isn't just about finding food. This sound is so powerful that it's theorized the whale can use it as a weapon. By narrowing the beam of sound, they might be able to literally flashbang their prey with an acoustic energy, stunning or even paralyzing a squid before they even reach it. They are essentially hunting with a biological railgun, using sound waves in water as bullets. But even when you're hunting with a biological railgun, the target doesn't always go down quietly. Sperm whales are tanky, definitely, but their prey isn't completely helpless either. These giant and colossal squids are genuinely deadly. For most animals, a 40-foot invertebrate with rotating hooks and serrated suction cups is the stuff of nightmares. We know these battles happen not because we've seen them, since they take place in a pitch black void miles below the surface, but because the whales carry the physical receipts. Nearly every adult sperm whale is covered in a map of horrific scars. They have giant circular welts on their heads and bodies, carved out by the sawtooth suckers of a giant squid. Some whales even have deep gashes from the pivoting bone hooks of the colossal squid. This is the most aggressive meal any whale is eating. Fortunately for the sperm whale, it's so massive and its skin is so thick that it can effectively ignore the fact a monster is trying to rip its face off, even though it's probably a bit painful. Realistically, the squids likely win less than 1% of the time against the whale. They'd have to hope the whale was a juvenile, or that they're a really beefy squid. Inside the stomachs of sperm whales, scientists have found thousands of hard, indigestible squid beaks. Since the soft tissue of the squid dissolves quickly, these beaks pile up like a biological graveyard. Some individual whales have been found with over 18,000 beaks in their gut all at once. Basically, it's quite unlikely the squids are actually going to win the battle, even though those marks do look brutal. It's a gruesome reality. The krakens that have terrified sailors for centuries, the massive, hook-tentacled horrors of the deep, aren't actually the kings of the abyss. They are a prey species. They are being harvested by the thousands by a mammal that decided millions of years ago that the dark wasn't something to be afraid of. But the real terror isn't just their size, it's the fact they're actually thinking. While the deep dives are solo missions, their social life is built on tactical superiority. This is the real reason orcas usually keep their distance even against juveniles. If a pod is threatened, the adults form a marguerite formation. They arrange themselves in a giant circle with their heads pointed inwards and their massive tails pointed out. The calves are tucked safely in the center, protected by a wall of 40-ton units. Even the wolves of the sea aren't dumb enough to challenge this. One tail flick can kill them. They have no rivals. They have no peers. They've turned the most hostile environment on the planet into a private, guarded pantry. Animals have been evolutionarily scarred by this one creature. For nearly 20 million years, the sperm whale has been the primary protagonist of the deep sea. When a predator dominates a world for that long, the rest of the ecosystem starts to bend around them. It's a concept called evolutionary memory, where the fear of a specific predator becomes baked into the DNA of everything else. This is why so many species, especially in the deep, have developed such specific, almost paranoid ways of living. If you're a squid, your entire existence is basically a desperate attempt to stay off a sonar screen. The hooks, the ink, the camouflage, it's all a part of a 20 million year old arms race that the squids are still very clearly losing. Even migration patterns across the globe are influenced by the shadow of the whale. Many species will actively avoid specific deep water trenches or underwater canyons not because the water is too cold, but because that's where the whales have been hunting since before humans could even walk upright. It is a learned trauma that has been passed down through countless generations of prey. The ocean doesn't just fear the sperm whale because it's big or because it's loud. It fears them because for the last 20 million years, the whale has been the only thing in the dark that doesn't have to hide. Even other highly intelligent predators, like beaked whales, live in a state of acoustic paranoia. They've been observed performing extreme, silent dives, specifically avoiding the frequency ranges where the sperm whales hunt. They are essentially playing a high-stakes game of don't breathe, where the seeker is a 50-ton biological radar. Even orcas, when they hear the distinct rhythmic clicking of a bull sperm whale, have been known to go completely radio silent. They stop their own vocalizations to avoid being detected. Across the board, the presence of a sperm whale creates what scientists call an acoustic shadow. When those clicks start, the rest of the ocean gets very, very quiet. It is a silence born out of respect, or more accurately, survival. Because in the deep, everything is a trade-off. To be fast, you usually have to be small. To be big, you usually have to be slow. But the sperm whale is massive, it's fast, and it's smarter than almost everything else in the water. So when you see them floating vertically in the moonlight, looking like nothing more than a massive, unmoving stone, remember, they aren't always this peaceful. And the entire ocean remembers that too. Fortunately for us, we live on land, where the way of a whale could hurt us if it fell from the sky, which is pretty unlikely. But for everything else beneath the waves, the nightmare is very real, very loud, and very hungry. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one about why snails in the ocean become so much more scary than normal ones.